The higher the tariff, the more likely it is that the company will come into the United States and build a factory in the United States so it doesn't have to pay the.
Detroit is staggering its foundations, shaking not because of strikes or years of mismanagement, but under the crushing weight of a policy that was designed to protect it. What was meant to be a shield has turned into a hammer. At the center of this unfolding drama stands Stellantis, once celebrated as the transatlantic pillar of the global auto industry. But the company has just revealed losses so steep that they eclipse years of painstaking growth. In the first half of 2025 alone, Stellantis reported a net loss of not just $2.3 billion, but an even deeper $2.7 billion, a dramatic reversal from the $5.6 billion profit it posted only a year earlier. The bleeding doesn't stop there. Tariffs have already carved $300 million out of its balance sheet in just 6 months. And Doug Osterman, the company's own CFO, has admitted openly that the final toll for the year could climb as high as $1.5 billion. This is no small tremor, it is an earthquake ripping through Detroit's core. Sales across North America have plunged by 25% in the second quarter, stripping away market share at a speed no analyst dared predict. And here's the chilling question that lingers in every boardroom and every factory floor. If a giant like Stellantis is unraveling this quickly, what does it mean for the rest of Detroit? What does it mean for the workers whose livelihoods now hang in the balance? As fragile as glass in a storm, the numbers on a balance sheet can shock, but they cannot capture the full weight of this collapse. The real devastation is not written in quarterly reports, it is echoing through the factories themselves. Stellantis has already been forced to shut down operations in Mexico and Canada, a decision that tears at the very backbone of its supply chain and destabilizes the entire North American auto map. What was once a tightly coordinated production network has fractured almost overnight. Where the roar of assembly lines once symbolized strength, silence now reigns. The ripple effects of this silence have slammed into the U.S. heartland. 5 American plants are already caught in the shockwave. Their workers, nearly 900 men and women, have been abruptly sidelined, pushed into temporary layoffs that everyone fears could turn permanent. For families who built their lives around these jobs, the uncertainty is devastating. The fear is spreading from household to household like a slow-burning fire. And it's not hard to see why. Nearly 40% of Stellantis' North American production capacity lies outside U.S. borders, heavily concentrated in Mexico and Canada. When those hubs go dark, the shock doesn't respect borders. It cascades directly into American communities, hollowing out the very industry tariffs we're supposed to protect. The unspoken question is now unavoidable. If this is just the beginning, how deep will the collapse go? The closures alone would have been devastating. But the real chokehold comes from the mounting costs pressing down on every single vehicle rolling off the line. When the 25% tariff hit on April 3rd, it didn't just sting. It blanketed the entire auto industry in a financial burden that no manufacturer could escape. Analysts now project that U.S. automakers could collectively lose as much as $18 billion by the end of 2025. What was framed as protection has morphed into a crushing liability. Detroit's own Big Three Ford, GM, and Stellantis are carrying the heaviest weight. Together, they are shouldering nearly $42 billion of the losses. For every car assembled in the United States that still depends on imported parts, the average tariff bill has ballooned to $4,111. And for fully imported models, the price tag soars even higher to an eye-watering $8 or $141 per vehicle. The arithmetic is merciless. What was meant to shield American manufacturing has transformed into a tax on survival. Even the elite luxury segment is not immune. Ferrari, facing the same relentless pressure, has already raised sticker prices by 10%, a move that signals just how quickly tariffs are transforming once desirable cars into unaffordable luxuries. What was supposed to protect American industry is instead making every vehicle on the road heavier, not just for manufacturers, but for the consumers who ultimately pay the price. As if soaring costs weren't enough, the tariffs have ripped apart the fragile web that kept the industry alive. Supply chains that once flowed seamlessly across borders are now splintering under the weight of new barriers. General Motors, scrambling to fill the gaps, has been forced to ramp up emergency production at its Indiana facilities. It's a stopgap measure, a patch on a sinking ship, but it also highlights how fragile the system has truly become. In the days leading up to April the 3rd, the industry scrambled to beat the clock. Warehouses and carriers rushed to push inventory across borders before tariffs locked in. Ports and checkpoints flooded with last-minute shipments, creating bottlenecks and chaos. That surge bought a little time, but it also revealed the industry's deep dependence on cross-border trade and the sheer impossibility of replacing it overnight. GM's chief financial officer, Paul Jacobson, has already sounded a grim warning. If tariffs persist, even American plants themselves may be forced to consider relocating. That single admission strikes at the heart of the Made in the USA promise. It suggests that what was intended as economic defense could push American manufacturing to foreign soil. And the shockwaves don't stop with automakers. Parts suppliers transport fleets, logistics companies. Every link in the chain is being dragged into a spiraling cost vortex. Margins are thinning, options are vanishing, and the fallout is no longer theoretical. It is structural. It is spreading. With factories falling silent and workers pushed aside, industry leaders have been forced out of their boardrooms and into open confrontation with policymakers. The stakes are too high for quiet diplomacy. Stellantis chairman John Elkann has gone public with an urgent plea: exclude Mexico and Canada from the tariff list before the damage becomes irreversible. His argument is blunt. Washington's policy ignores the integrated reality of North American production. He points out that a loophole already allows 4 million vehicles to enter the U.S. without meeting domestic content rules, making the tariffs not just destructive, but inconsistent. The backlash has not stopped at corporate headquarters. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, under immense pressure from his own auto sector, has been forced to delay the country's 2026 electric vehicle mandate. His admission was stark: the industry is suffocating. That retreat underscores just how severe the pressure has become, not only for companies, but for national policy itself. Canada's Manufacturing Association has been equally scathing, accusing Washington of dragging the continent back into the age of dinosaurs by clinging to outdated protectionism instead of investing in the electric future. The message is unmistakable. What was once framed as economic defense is now seen by allies and executives alike as self-inflicted harm. And the calls for relief are only growing louder. What began as a domestic policy shock has now erupted into a geopolitical crisis for the global auto industry. Washington's tariffs were presented as a defense of American jobs, but the ripple effects have proven uncontrollable, forcing governments around the world into emergency mode. In South Korea, officials acted with unusual speed, approving a $2 billion rescue plan aimed not only at propping up automakers, but also at protecting hundreds of thousands of families tied to the sector. The scale of that response reveals just how vulnerable even advanced economies feel when U.S. trade policy shifts overnight. Japan now faces a looming shortfall that could erase $17 billion in export revenue. For Tokyo, the implications extend far beyond economics. Autos are a symbol of national pride and competitiveness. Losing ground in the U.S., its most profitable market, threatens not only economic growth, but also the credibility of an industry that has long anchored Japan's global image. Trade negotiators are already hinting at emergency talks, but the harsh truth is clear: no diplomacy can erase tariffs that cut this deeply into margins. Across the Atlantic, Europe is trapped in suspended anxiety. Automakers there now face tariffs of 27.5% on general imports and an unprecedented 30% on EU-built vehicles. A temporary delay until August might look like a reprieve on paper, but it has done little to calm shareholders or stabilize stock prices. Behind closed doors, European ministers weigh retaliatory measures, knowing each month of uncertainty chips away at investment confidence and slows the transition to electric mobility. And then there is Canada, the neighbor most entangled in America's industrial bloodstream. Ottawa has chosen a calibrated strike tariffs on US-made cars that deliver pain without detonating the wider supply chain. By sparing auto parts, Canadian officials are signaling both restraint and resolve, punishing Washington while keeping assembly lines alive. Yet even this careful move highlights the fragility of a system that can be disrupted not by war or disaster, but by a pen stroke in the Oval Office. The picture is unmistakable, an economic earthquake radiating outward from Detroit. Its tremors are shaking factories in Seoul boardrooms, in Tokyo ministries in Brussels, and communities across Canada. What began as an American gamble has transformed into a global reckoning, exposing just how tightly bound the world's economies are, and how dangerous it becomes when the anchor country decides to cut the rope. What was sold to the public as a shield for American workers is now cutting like a double-edged sword. America First was supposed to mean security jobs and a revitalized industry. Instead, it is increasingly being read as America Last, a policy that isolates U.S. automakers while opening doors for competitors abroad. The Detroit Regional Chamber has issued a warning in plain, unmistakable terms. These tariffs are not strengthening America's hand. They are severing the very global supply chains that keep the industry alive. Credit agencies are echoing the alarm. Moody's has singled out Volkswagen Volvo and Stellantis as the most heavily exposed to the tariff storm, their balance sheets absorbing blows they cannot easily deflect. Analysts at ING add that Washington's decision to slash subsidies for electric vehicles will only deepen the wounds. By stalling EV expansion, the U.S. risks falling behind in the very race that will define the next era of global mobility. Yet not everyone is suffering. Tesla, the great outlier, is reaping the rewards of a distorted market. While rivals stumble under the weight of tariffs, rising costs, and stalled production, Tesla's stock has surged nearly 2/3 in value. At the precise moment when others falter, it cements its dominance. The irony could not be sharper. A policy designed to shield America's industrial champions is instead creating a battlefield where perhaps only one champion will remain standing. The question now is no longer whether Stellantis can weather the storm. The far greater question is whether the entire American auto industry is sliding into a new era of decline. In Michigan, the beating heart of U.S. manufacturing layoffs are multiplying, and confidence is evaporating. Workers who once believed Detroit was unshakable now watch its foundations crack beneath their feet. Abroad, faith in the stability of U.S. policy is evaporating. Every hesitation in Washington becomes an open door for rivals. From Asia to Europe, competitors are racing to seize the market share America is surrendering, while Detroit stumbles under the very protectionism meant to revive it. If the current trajectory holds the name, Detroit may soon symbolize not resurgence, but retreat. And that is the unsettling reality. Tariffs, intended to defend America's industrial might, may in truth be accelerating its decline. The world is watching. Markets are shifting. Consequences are cascading far beyond factory gates. The only question that remains is whether America can course correct before the damage becomes irreversible, or whether history will remember this moment as the turning point when protection became self-destruction. If this video gave you something to think about, don't forget to like and subscribe to support more content like this. Thank you for watching.